Well, good evening, Jeremy. Friday evening, less than a week away from opening day, as you have in your backdrop there. That's usually what it's going to look like at Fenway, even though we open up in the Evil Empire's backyard this year. But I can't wait to see that beautiful sunset, sunny backdrop in Fenway Park.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. We're a week away. It is Friday. Today, for the most part, though, we are going to go ahead and discuss our top three baseball movies while enjoying a drink. So, although
can't
mine
see it
doesn't
there,
want
it
to
looks
show up.
invisible there. So we're talking about sports movies. So I'm a whiskey connoisseur. I know you're a whiskey connoisseur. Hopefully you can see this. It gets a little closer, and you can't, unfortunately.
Of
It
course.
says Writer's Tears. That is the name of this Irish whiskey I will be taking this endeavor with you on. With that being said, I'll let you start off. Take us off with your number three. Then we'll go bounce back and forth, 3, 2, 1.
There we go.
And let the debate
like that
begin.
idea. So the when we discussed this earlier, we were just doing over text messages and that, came up, top three baseball movies. And of course, as I'm thinking, the three are my go-tos. So at number three, and I am going in order, so we're going to go 3 to 1. Number three, I know recently it's come under fire because, I don't know, some people apparently forgot what it was like to be a kid or something, but The Sandlot is 3 for me. And the reason why it sticks with me is because it came out right around an influential age, where I was getting into baseball. And also, I'm of the generation that, we, had the internet, but not trying to date myself too much here. The internet wasn't really around when I was in that age as a kid. So I was still going outside, playing games with my friends. We had our own sandlot where we were playing baseball in and stuff like that. So seeing a movie like that, one, is nostalgic, but also two, to me, it holds up because I've got kids of my own. They watch it. They laugh hysterically at it. But it also teaches the important lessons of, friendship and what baseball, as well as other sports, can do to friendships to help, build a bond with each other and that. So number three, definitely Sandlot as a go-to, because I can just watch that pretty much anytime, enjoy it, and kind of reminisce on things. So I'll kick it back over to you. Where are you at?
That's a strong number three. I mean, my childhood memories always go to the backyard or the back of a gas station, whether we were playing baseball, wiffle ball, or stickball. It always goes back to those childhood memories.
Good times, man.
I went with an historic aspect for my three. And I'll just give you a clue that, 2 of those are baseball in my backdrop. The other one is Raging Bull, obviously, Bobby De Niro. But bonus question, or not bonus question, but a question for our audience. How many movies has Kevin Costner been in? And I'm talking total movies, not all his movies, but how many movies has Kevin Costner been in as far as regarding to sports? There's more than you think, because you think baseball, but he's been in some other sports movies too. So I'll just leave it there. And with number three, I'm going to start off with 61. Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle, the chase to beat the Babes record back in the early 60s. It almost felt like it was, it wasn't a Hollywood movie. It felt like an historical movie, like I'd watch on the MLB channel or the History Channel. Even though you recognize some of the actors that were in the movie, absolutely, but it just told, there are some aspects. I'm sure Mick's family probably didn't look lightly on it because it spoke harshly to his alcoholism that really haunted him for years. As the Mick would say, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. I think about that phrase or quote from him every day. I wake up out of bed and my body's sore. So that's my number three, 61.
So 61.
And it's a Yankees. I get it.
It's a Yankees movie, right? And this is something that gets thrown at me. I am a big baseball fan outside of Red Sox, but Red Sox are number one always. And I have not seen 61, and I get crucified for it because it's such a good movie, and everybody tells me, oh, it's, you know, well directed and it still tells a good story and that. And you know, I just haven't watched it simply because I'm a homer and I go, well, it's about the Yankees. I really am not going to care that much. But the more I hear about it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe one day I will go ahead and check it out. So
Yeah,
I
check
don't
it out.
blame you because many people do revere it. So you gonna go with number two now?
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it going. Number two for me was The Natural. Some people will say, where's the history in that? History is if you talk to Boston Red Sox fans, even though there's some fictional stories in that movie, it's Ted Williams.
Yeah.
You know, he left the game for a certain amount of time for the Korean War. You know, mind you, this gentleman here, he left the ball game for a totally different set of reasons, but the storyline falls in line. He wanted to be known as the best hitter that ever lived. You hear him say that, and other people say that throughout the movie. You know, I always wondered what a Ted Williams movie would look like. Is this Ted Williams, you know, with the blonde hair? Teddy had darker hair, obviously. But Robert Redford is one of our best actors in the history of filmmaking. So just love this movie and the plots and the storyline that it goes along. And nothing says Hollywood more than that ending home run with it felt like fireworks, even though it's the lights being broken by that home run with the baseball going into the light stand. And the fight felt like fireworks going off as he rounds the bases. So for me, number two is The Natural.
I certainly don't blame you going with that one. The Natural, very good movie. Redford, of course, his acting in it is superb, like most things that he's in. And I agree, it is reflective of Ted Williams. It's, you know, not exactly like that, but it would be similar to what a Ted Williams movie would look like. The other thing that The Natural does, it, you know, a lot of people will kind of shy away from it because of the cheesiness of the last home run and that. But honestly, anybody who has been involved with sports or even just kind of dabbled with it when you were a kid, you thought about that final scene of, you know, you're up to bat, it's the last time, you know, you do something dramatic like that where you know, break the lights, or, you know, in football, you know, run into the end zone and the crowd rushes onto the field and stuff like that.
Who was
It
the
really
Blue
makes you
Jay who
think of
won
it.
the game with the final home run in the World Series? Who was that guy?
Oh, that was
Oh,
touch 'em all, Joe. Joe Carter
Joe
in the blue
Carter.
for the Blue
That's
Jays,
exactly, I
'92.
mean,
Yep,
exactly what that scene exemplifies. It's like win the home run to win the game.
yep, exactly. That's what it does. So
Yeah.
I don't blame you there. But so my number two, and my go-to, I will say this: all three of my go-tos are comedy. It's just because I'm a goofball like that. And usually, when I watch a movie, I want to laugh, but I don't take away from any of the dramatic baseball movies like Eight Men Out. That's one I can just sit and watch anytime it's on. Um, you know, Cobb is another one that I really enjoy too. But I just, for a movie that I can sit down and watch anytime, my top three are going to be comedies. So number two for me is Bull Durham, a Costner movie. And honestly, I think if you have a list of baseball movies, one of the Costner ones is going to be in there, no matter who you are. He does have a passion for baseball. At one time, he owned a minor league team. It's always been a thing for him, and he really brings it to his movies. And Bull Durham was, for me, a movie that just, no matter how many times I watch it, there is something new I laugh at. It's something I didn't catch before, or something I just never really thought of, but there's something I will take away from it that just makes me laugh again. The other part of it too is, again, talking about, you know, sports and how it brings people together and creates a bond and stuff. It's one of the first baseball movies I can remember that brings in, you know, kind of a serious, you know, little bit of drama to it, but then they sprinkle in the comedy right at the right time, and it shows how it can bring people together.
I'm
You
moving
know,
my
so
head so people could see Bull Durham. No.
yep, there you go. Yeah, it's in your background, right? And you know, it tells a good, you know, kind of dramatic story, but when the comedy comes in, it's right at the right time, and it's not slapstick, it's not things like that. kind of things that you'd come across with in just in everyday life that would make you laugh. And the rain out scene, right? That's the one that always gets me is, you know what, boys, we need a rain out right now.
Yeah.
And you can even tie that into life, when you're just grinding away and grinding away and grinding away. And finally, you just need to have a day off to just kind of goof around or, just kind of forget about your problems for a little bit. And, it'll help you come back refreshed. And so seeing that movie just kind of does things like that for me, but it's definitely a ride, and it has a bunch of one-liners in there that I just absolutely love. The scene where, Nuke Lelouch is shaking him off and he's throwing a 2-hit shutout. He's like, "You're shaking me off. And Billy, when you speak of me, speak well."
That wouldn't have been out of many parks. Name one, Yellowstone. All right, might have been from Major League though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It shows two ball players at two different levels of the spectrum of their careers. And you see that in baseball all the time when you see a we'll say Big Papi that took Devers underneath his arm when during his career. Same thing with these two players. You get the one guy at the end of his career, and in the movie, obviously, he didn't care for it too much. But towards the end, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to help this guy make it to the big leagues and get to where he needs to be and learn what it needs to be to stay up there." So I like that spectrum. Before you get to number one, I want to hear a couple honorable mentions from. I'll give you my two honorable mentions first.
Yeah, go for it.
One, then I'll let you go number one.
Right.
My comedy honorable mention, because I had to put a comedy in there, the Bad News Bears, and I'm talking about the original Bad News Bears, just hysterical. And once again, it goes back to your number three, right?
Yep.
How much fun it was to play in Little League. I had a good Little League team. We made it into the playoffs every year. We only lost like 1 or 2 games a year. I wasn't the best player on the team, but it wasn't because of me. It's because we had good pitching and all. But it's just that piece right there. We all envisioned getting to a point in Little League. Maybe you'd play at Fenway. That'd be the top of the mountain, right?
Yeah.
To play at a game, So I loved, from a comedy aspect, the Bad News Bears. And from a drama storyline aspect, more Hollywood. And the reason I didn't go with this one, I'll tell you in a second, is Field of Dreams. It didn't feel like it's a baseball movie, don't get me wrong, but it's a story about life, obviously. You got a guy in his middle, maybe having a midlife crisis or whatever the case may be. We're only a few hours away from this place in Iowa. Turns his corn into a baseball field. Ghosts start walking out of it. One ends up being his father. He goes kidnaps the guy in Boston. Another ghost appears. The doc.
Yep.
It's a feel-good movie. It's a feel-good movie. But is it a baseball movie to me? No. But it speaks volumes to a holistic view of what baseball is to everybody.
Gotcha.
If you build it, they will come. Yes, it meant his father at the end of the movie, but it really meant all the fans who miss the days of sitting in the bleachers when they're 8, 10 years old, whether it was at Wrigley Field, Fenway Park, name some old stadiums, Yankee Stadium.
Yep. Polo Grounds.
Polo Grounds, exactly. Yep. So those are my two honorable mentions.
Gotcha. My honorable mentions, I've already actually mentioned is 8 Men Out for drama. You can really make the case that it's not a baseball movie. It's more about the trial, but to me, it is a baseball movie. It involves a baseball team. It involves a black mark that's, on the league that's still debatable till this day about if it actually happened or not. It opens up, quite a few things once you watch it of, how we look at that team and what they did. So that's a movie that's definitely in my honorable mention. Plus, the acting in it is great. You got a lot of guys now who are older, but back then they weren't. A John Cusack, Charlie Sheen before he went all Charlie Sheen like. And a couple others in there too that I'm leaving out, but it was a very, very well done movie. And I think it is a baseball movie in my category. And then also to, again, it's a drama because in my top three, it's all comedy. Once I think of other comedy baseball movies, Bad News Bears is up there. You talked about that, but I will go another drama is another Costner movie, and that's For Love of the Game. That one is a very good one as well. And of course it, plays a little bit into life, and he's, at the twilight of his career and wrestling with things, and to see him go through that, while also, pitching a perfect game and stuff. It's pretty cool.
I will lie, I had chills watching that movie.
Right.
Especially when we got to the seventh inning on. It's a movie, and I'm saying, like, is he gonna get it? Is he gonna get it?
Right. So those are my two honorable mentions for sure. So but now I'll go into my number one.
Can I just say, Kevin Costner is a pure genius when it comes. I don't know what people's opinions are for his movie choices over the years. Waterworld, whatever the post office thing was, that horrible movie. But when it comes to baseball and sports movies, especially baseball, he's literally hit a home run.
Yeah,
absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I feel like Field of Dreams and For the Love of the Game, if he doesn't do another movie, to have those both as bookends to his acting career when it came to baseball films is phenomenal, because they both tell the story of baseball from the fan and the player. So
yeah,
I just
absolutely.
want to get that out there. My opinion on that.
Well, like I said, anytime you're getting a list, if you're doing like top 5 of, just sports movies, he's going to be in there regardless. So that's a common theme. But anyways, getting into the number one that I have, when we're talking comedies, I'm sure it comes no surprise to anybody with my top one. It would be Major League. And I'll talk a little bit of why, pretty much anybody who is a sports fan has seen that movie. If you haven't, you need to, for sure, because it's transcendent. It still holds up well till this day, with the comedy that's in there. And there is, again, a bunch of one-liners. Bob Uecker is amazing in it. I've listened to some of his, broadcasts for Brewers for years.
Listen to that crowd.
Oh yeah, he is so good at it. The one-liners he has is just it's insane. Well, actually, the one I always think of, it's Major League 2, but it's the one that they're starting to fight with each other, and then he's like, "My God, fans, they're showing signs of life for the first time in weeks," But he's got a bunch, that's the Trojan Ends Boner of the Week award, all those things. Bob Uecker's amazing in it, but then you also have the other actors that feed off of each other through the movie with the comedy. But the thing with Major League is, it's the underdog story, right? Everybody roots for the underdog. I think what's a little bit different about it, though, is it doesn't solely focus on just the team. You have the side stories in there. Jake Taylor, again, at the end of his career, looking for one more winner and trying to get his life back together. You got Charlie Sheen as, the young gun coming up and not really knowing too much about life other than being a criminal and how he has to learn. And, you have Pedro Serrano, so the cultural appropriation, that there's different cultures and they're going to do things that are odd and stuff. And so it's so good. And, speaking of Bob Uecker one-liners, the one that I really love is, Hayward crushes one deep towards South America and Serrano's going to need a rocket up his ass to get that one.
Or how about, you're going to need a visa to catch this one.
Yes, exactly. And the fans too, right? The fans in Major League, that's the other thing it did. It brought in the fan perspective of the comedy and what the fans thought about the underdog.
It's too high. It's too high. What do you mean it's too high?
It's too hard. It's too hard. No. And then when they're trying to wave, it's only 3 of them. So yeah, that's a movie. I think everybody who is a sports fan, whenever it comes on, they can watch it. And honestly, I dare anybody, if you're in a bad mood, put that movie on and see if you can stay in a bad mood.
Yeah, exactly. Just a bit outside. Yeah,
Man, with the balls being so close, I can't believe these guys are laying off.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I can't believe I didn't put that in my honorable mention, but it's definitely there. But like I say, I kept totally historic, and you already mentioned it, 8 Men Out. That was my number one. For me, it's my number one. I love history. Maybe it's living outside of Chicago now that it kind of hits home a little bit. It truly tells the facts of how greedy these owners were, and some might say they still are, but they stole and they took a lot, and they didn't give back to the players back then, whether they did it or not, whether Shoeless Joe Jackson did it or not. And that's another piece. I love historical figures like Shoeless Joe Jackson, and we can talk about this for a second after I'm finished with my number one. We've had this discussion off and on why, if Shoeless Joe Jackson's not getting in, Barry Bonds better have her never get in. I feel Pete Rose should be in. Right. Mind you, he'd been on baseball, but still the best baseball hitter of our lifetime. But getting back to 8 Men Out, it does spend a lot of time on the court, but there an aspect where they're playing hard, especially when they finally come around and say, hey, these bettors are screwing us over. We just need to go on there and try and win it. They in the movie, obviously, they didn't try. In reality, who's to know if they did? They probably didn't. I'm sure Hollywood kind of boosted that up. But one of the biggest quotes out of there, that anytime you meet somebody with the name Joe, right? Say it ain't so, Joe.
Say it ain't so, Joe. Yep.
What do you know, Joe? Little things like that. I kind of feel like I was always born a generation or two too soon. I would have loved, I think as a baseball purist, I think we all would have loved to seen Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, all these greats, Shoeless Joe Jackson play in their prime. Unfortunately, we didn't. But that's my number one. And like I said, if Shoeless Joe Jackson never gets in, I can't let any of those other guys get in.
Well, you know what? I still have more drink to finish, so we can continue on with that as far as Hall of Fame goes. I am totally in the same ballpark with you as that. No pun intended. But Shoeless Joe, you look at his numbers, you look at stats. Not only that, what he was accused of, you still look at his numbers in the World Series.
I think he hit over 400.
He hit over 400. Had a couple stolen bases. He was trying. You can't say he wasn't trying. And he should be in the Hall of Fame. And I understand all.
Did he take the money? Maybe, probably.
Right. He might have, right? No way to prove it, but he might have. Why wouldn't you, especially at that time?
Because there was no Twitter or Facebook back then for the posts about it.
Right.
Yeah, I just took money from a bookie.
Right. And my thing too is, I think personally, the steroids thing always comes up with the Hall of Fame debate. And, that's, to me, it could be a separate thing, but I'll kind of tie it in here, right? You've got Shoeless Joe banned for life, betting on baseball. Pete Rose banned for life, betting on baseball. I understand that. But the Hall of Fame tells a story of baseball. It's the history of baseball. And with what those guys did, how can you not tell the story of baseball? Or how can you tell the story of baseball without including those guys? You can't. Yeah. And you really can't. And Pete Rose, I'm sorry, is he a horrible human being? Absolutely. But to put him in the Hall of Fame is just to recognize his baseball career.
This is what remains, they are in the Hall of Fame. Their busts aren't in the Hall of Fame. There is memorabilia, whether it's cleats, gloves, bats. Yep. There's all kinds of memorabilia. We know Clemens' uniform is in the Hall of Fame. And the first time he struck out 20 Seattle Mariners back in, what was it, 85, 86, 86.
Yep,
you
86.
know? So it's not like these guys aren't in the Hall of Fame. It's not like they're losing sleep. Not like they get
Right.
extra money for being in the Hall of Fame other than the extra popularity and their extra boost to their ego.
Right.
If I had two guys, I'll just go with two that if I could put in the Hall of Fame, one would be the Rocket
Hmm.
because he obviously had the numbers up until I believe it was Dan Duquette said, "No, your career's over, and letting you go to Toronto." And he played another 5 years, and he did what he did. Whether he did it with the steroids, which he did,
Right.
there's actual athletes to say he was injected. But anyways, he had a fantastic career by far prior to any suspicion of steroids. And we won't even get into the other drugs, the amphetamines and stuff they were doing in the 80s and whatever. But I'll go with my other one in a second. I'll let you pick your first one.
All right. So my first one that belongs in the Hall of Fame actually is Shoeless Joe Jackson. Just based on his numbers, he competes with everybody else in that era who's in the Hall of Fame. Again, going to that debate with the World Series, did he do it? Did he not? You look at the numbers. To me, it just proves, okay, he was trying. Nobody hits over 400 not trying. I'm sorry. I don't care if it was just a small snippet of the World Series, only being that amount of games that you hit over 400. It's still very tough to do, even over a 2-game stretch. Fact is, when it comes to baseball, if you're hitting 30% of the time, you're great. So he did more than that during the World Series when it is debatable the rest of the team wasn't. So I think he gets an out for that. But also looking at the rest of his career, it speaks for itself. And for him to be banned for life under suspicion of taking the money, no real hard proof that anything came of it, that's just an injustice. I mean, Pete Rose, you can make a little bit of a better case for because it is proven, and he admitted it, that he did bet on baseball. Shoeless Joe never admitted it and never came forward with it.
The guy signed an X.
Right, exactly. He signed an X, and it was well known that he could not really read or write that well because he wasn't that educated. So that's where I go with it. So I'll go to your number one. We might be in agreement on the number one.
You might be surprised. I'm going to stick with. I'm a homer on this one, and because this is off the monster, I'm going to stay with the Red Sox. I want to say Manny Ramirez, but he's a 2-time guy who got busted. At least it was 2 times, But Curt Schilling, and there's no steroids, no nothing. He just didn't have these glamorous numbers and the personality. He rubbed the reporters the wrong way with his personality, unfortunately. But a guy, obviously, with the bloody sock, the guy you wanted on the mound, when other than Pedro Martinez, maybe in a Red Sox uniform, you wanted on that mound to pitch a game. The one thing I love about going to Yankee Stadium is making 35,000 fans shut the hell up. He said something else, but so that's my other one.
Man, you know what? You did throw me for a surprise.
Yeah.
Schilling.
Who did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going Bonds, and that's
no. You know me well enough.
One.
I won't go Bonds. I can't do it.
When you brought it up, I thought you might have leaned that way, but I will say this with Schilling, there is a case to be made for it. Is he going to be? Would he have been a first ballot Hall of Famer if he didn't have the personality that he did? No, I don't think he would have been. But I think eventually, with especially with the Veterans Committee and that, you could see a path where he would be in there. But it is a tough argument to have. You are a homer in saying that, and I don't blame you because part of me is like, yeah, he should be in, and then I kind of look at other things and I go, I don't know. But I do think he is going to get an unfair look based on his personality. Which again ties into like the Pete Rose stuff. Terrible human being, sure, if that's what you want to say. In regards to Schilling, is he a terrible human being? If you want to look at it that way, sure. But did it affect his baseball career? Did it have anything to do with baseball? No, I mean, it really didn't.
And if
So,
I went with Barry Bonds, I would have said the same thing, personality.
right, right,
Other than the fact that, yeah, personality. He's just
right.
not an easygoing guy to get along with. But
Yeah.
I'll let you go to your number
So,
one.
yeah, it's cat's already out of the bag already. It is Bonds.
Yeah.
The reason why, and it's well known, before the year 2000, which is right around that time where it was suspicious that Bonds was taking steroids. Before that, you could honestly say that Barry Bonds was a generational talent. He was a 40-40 guy. He had all the stats, everything. You look at those numbers before 2000, he's in. Why he's kept out because of steroids, that's up for debate. It is obvious that he took them, even though he wants to deny it. I mean, nobody's head gets 4 times the size as you get older. And for anybody that wants to even look back, you can look at before 2000. I mean, he was a rail. He was a very skinny guy. He was lean and he was powerful, but he was, really skinny. And then, of course, after 2000, he's basically looking like The Rock.
Well, we both know you don't stay skinny as you get older.
No, exactly. And so looking at before 2000, he's in. Same argument could be made for Clemens. For people that are like, well, we want to keep steroid guys out. Okay, Clemens, right around 99, 2000, in that range, was that suspicion. And I believe he left the Red Sox in 97, 98, somewhere in there. I believe it was 98. He was pitching for the Blue Jays, and that's when everything kind of started as far as the accusations with steroids. So look at his career as a Red Sox pitcher. Could you debate that he's in the Hall of Fame? Not at all. I mean, he should be in based on those things. I mean, heck, 220 strikeout games. Those games are mentioned in the Hall of Fame. They're in there. So like you were saying, he's in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
But why his bust isn't there? I mean, he could go in as a Red Sox, and that's before all the steroid stuff, and it's fine. But my belief with everything, as far as steroids era, all that, put an asterisk in there. Get these guys in, put an asterisk, tell the story of baseball, tell the history of it. The McGwire-Sosa home run race did bring baseball back. Whether you like it or not, it did. And
well, my opinion, because I like 61. So
right.
It's the same
really
reason I couldn't put Bonds on my list. I couldn't put Mark McGwire on that list. Roger Maris for one, and Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron was a god to baseball.
Class act.
Yep. Yeah, and to see what happened to him, and he did it like the perfect gentleman that he was. And for what he went through to get to that point, and then that record be tarnished the way it was, it just sickened a lot of true baseball fans, pure baseball purist fans, I should say.
Right. And it did. And I don't take away from that at all. I thought the same thing, especially a few years ago when all this, we were going through all this stuff. But then it really kind of hit me. If you look at all the Hall of Fames, in sports, basketball Hall of Fame, you've got guys who were not great human beings in there. I mean, say what you want, Wilt Chamberlain, he's got a lot of stuff and, a lot of skeletons in his closet that came out. He's in the Hall of Fame. Nobody's questioning that, obviously. You look at football, right? O.J. Simpson still is in the Hall of Fame for football.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at it as his contributions on the field.
He was already in.
Okay, right. He was already in. Then everything happened afterwards. There was talk of, removing him, which I wouldn't blame anybody, but he is still in the Hall of Fame.
They're removing statues of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, but no, OJ will leave in the museum. That's perfectly fine.
Right. And so when I look at all the other sports, and what they have and stuff, it's like, actually, right, hockey, right? Bobby Hull's in the Hall of Fame for hockey. Bobby freaking Hull. There's a lot of stories on that guy, but he's in.
Ty Cobb, too.
Right. Yeah, Ty Cobb is in. Ty Cobb is probably a worse human being than Pete Rose, but he's in. So that's where I go with it. It's like, if you're going to do this, the steroid era, sure, throw an asterisk there, tell the story of baseball. Yep, during this time, Barry Bonds did break all these home run records. He was under suspicion of steroids. Those type of things to complete the story of baseball. Why nobody wants to go for it, I don't know, but I'm not saying I'm the smartest person in the world. I just think that would appease to everybody, and we can move on and debate something else, like how much the Yankees suck.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah. I want to do a quick lightning round. So I've got baseball, basketball, hockey. What am I missing? The big four? Football.
Football. Yep.
All right. I'm writing down some names here
Oh boy.
and a little lightning round. You just have to say which are you going with, and a couple of them will make easy. All right, MJ or LeBron?
Oh wow. MJ.
Yeah, same here.
Yep. MJ.
Gretzky or Connor McDavid?
Gretzky.
Going with Connor McDavid.
Wow.
I love the size of Connor McDavid. The fact that he's doing it that size and the speed that this guy has with the less talent that he has around him and the numbers he's putting up with them. I was just never a Gretzky fan. I'm not going to lie.
Hey.
He had goalies wearing basically pajamas in the goal.
Right.
They had no padding. He had 1,800 feet behind the net. Nobody touched him. A whole different generation. So, all right, I'll stop there.
All right.
Baseball. Ted Williams, Mike Trout.
Oh. I
didn't say they'd be easy.
Homer. I'm going Homer. I'm going Teddy Ballgame.
Yeah,
and
same here.
I will say this: best pure hitter that has ever lived.
Yeah. If Trout, he seems to be injury after injury lately, which isn't helping his longevity in the league, unfortunately. All right, last one, and this could be easy. This is a hard one for me because I idolized one as a child and the second as an adult. Do you want to guess who the footballs are? Any guess?
Oh man,
the one you have to know.
One, I'm going to say Brady.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Any guess? Quarterback also.
When you were younger?
Mm-hmm. Montana.
Yep. Yeah. There you go. Brady Montana debate.
Yep.
Man. All right.
I want to say Montana.
So here's where I'll go, right? Montana, right? He can speak that he's undefeated in Super Bowls, but he only got the 4.
Yeah.
Undefeated, sure, but
you got the ball in the fourth quarter. Don't get me wrong. Brady made the plays to get there. It felt like it's 50-50 with field goal or a touchdown. It felt like every time Montana got the ball in a critical situation, they were marching down the field and getting a touchdown.
Right.
And he just had a better touch on the
ball.
Cool. And I always hear this from non-New England fans. Oh, they're like 5 and outs, 3 and outs for Brady. These little lob passes, which they might be right a little bit there. And he had some fantastic wide receivers, even though they don't get credit. Edelman, Troy Brown. Help me out here.
Oh, Edelman, Troy Brown, Wes Welker.
Yeah.
Another one. He had Moss for a couple of years. And,
I'm going to catch some heat, hopefully, in the comment section on that one. But, I got to go with my childhood.
I'm going Brady.
Good.
And, Brady, you can make that case with Montana, right? High pressure situation. You're going to march down the end zone and
he also had the best receiver in all of.
Right. That's the other thing, right? He had Jerry Rice. And before he had Jerry Rice, he had John Taylor.
And he had Roger Craig.
Right. He had Roger Craig. He had that defense that nobody really talks about either for those years. Ronnie Lott and, guys like that. There was Hall of Fame players on those teams for that stretch that Montana was there. And then you also
Teddy Bruschi didn't have Hall of Fame guys.
Right. Patriots did too. Yes.
Yeah. Especially in the early 2000s.
Right. And then you also look to, what happened with Montana after he left. Steve Young came in that role and still flourished. I mean, he only had one Super Bowl from it, but he still flourished with those guys.
Yeah.
Brady, because of the sustainability, I'd take him over Montana because high pressure situation, right? He is going to make the smart play. If you're down by, 2, 1, or even 3, Brady's going to do what it takes to at least get you to that point where you can kick a field goal. If you're down by a touchdown, again, Brady is going to get you to the point where you're that close to make that final play be a touchdown. And it's up in the air whether it happens or not. Sometimes it's happened for him, sometimes it hasn't, but he always gets you right there. And he's had more opportunities to do it and has proven it. Whereas Montana, maybe it's just because, after he went to Kansas City, and he was injured, he had that, bad injury from, I can't remember who on the Giants hit him, but he had that bad injury. He was never the same after that. He went to Kansas City. He was okay, but never quite the same. So maybe it cut that short, but I would stick with Brady. I mean, he's the greatest of all time for sure.
So I read today that they have 2 bench seats, two positions left on the bench as we go on to, less than a week left. And there's a familiar name that was released today.
Brock Holt. See that. Oh, yes.
Do you want to see Brock Holt? What was his nickname? Something about Holster or something like that.
Yeah, something. I can't remember the nickname, but
I wouldn't mind seeing Brock Holt. He plays every position. He's such a clubhouse guy.
He has a soft spot in my heart, just like Travis Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to put up the big numbers. They're not, but they're just good guys. Like,
yeah,
I root for him. So yeah, I would be open to bringing Brock Holt back. I mean, he has flourished with the Red Sox before. Maybe you can catch lightning in a bottle and have him, produce when we need him to again.
Right. And so you get the Cassis and Durant come up later in the season.
Right. Just keep the seat warm until they come up and, go from there. Cause I'd like to see that, and I think the same thing in Travis Shaw. I think right now he's just going to keep a roster spot warm for one of the guys coming up, whoever it's going to be. And again, he can play all over. Brock Holt can play all over. That's what I like about it too. So hopefully they're going to give him some interest and bring him back, because I would love to see it.
Yeah. So, all right, one more week to go. By this time next week, we'll be talking about one game of the books and hopefully one win, our first win of the year in the Bronx.
Absolutely.
But, you see that comment section, folks, please fill it out. We want to know who your top 3, what your top 3 baseball sports movies were.
Sports
do you think we're
Hall of Fame guys, whatever.
Yep, exactly. Do you think we're
drink
clueless?
Of choice?
Tell us we're clueless. We're all different ages, so really curious to see what your opinion is. That until next week, to spin off the monster. Thanks for tuning in, Jeremy, and thanks for tuning in, everybody else. Have a great night.
Good one.